The chamber fell silent, not from reverence but fear. Earth's signal had gone dark. No warning. No declaration. Just a blinking red dot on the Council's tactical array, pulsing once every second like a countdown no one set. The galactic races leaned forward in dread as the signal changed. One final message, etched in burning code across every screen. "We know what you did. Now you'll see what we became." The stars didn't blink. They watched. From the edge of the Centauri wall to the dust-ringed moons of Ogrith, a billion sensors locked onto a single anomaly, the signal Earth had just sent. No voice, no video, just a pulse. Recurring every 6 seconds, encoded in an extinct Terran format no species used anymore, Morse code. 3 simple letters, again and again, REX. In the grand dome of the Galactic Council Citadel, silence fell like gravity. The alien dignitaries, representatives of 48 dominant species, sat frozen in their lev chairs, data crawling over their screens and neural uplinks. A thudding sense of dread seeped into the room. Ambassador Kale of the Ranvar leaned forward, speaking through his neck vents. "They sent us a name." No one responded. Not at first. Because everyone in that chamber had read the Terran files. And every species that had tried to conquer, regulate, or manipulate Earth had a file on that name, Dominion Rex Talon. Exiled. Unstable. Brilliant. Genocidal, some claimed. Human warlord. Strategist. Ghost. He had disappeared 10 cycles ago, stripped of rank, blamed for the Earth Dravix incident. But the humans had never officially confirmed his death. And now he was sending his name ahead of him. "Maybe it's not him," said the Tarsid minister. "It could be an AI simulation. A bluff." The Grand Arbiter of the Council didn't even look up from his data slate. "It's not a bluff. That pulse is coming from the remains of the Lucent Crown. The ship we buried at the edge of the disavowed zone." Counselor Veritha's voice cracked. "That ship was scuttled in secret. No transponders, no navigation trace. How in the black did they find it?" "Because he was on it," said a voice from the shadows. The council turned to face a tall, pale being in diplomat robes. Human. But not just any. Earth's silent observer, a low-ranking envoy who hadn't spoken in over 3 years of attending sessions. He now stepped forward, placing a shard of obsidian glass on the council table. It lit up, displaying a transmission, a single human man, seated on a throne made of fractured hull steel, with council banners draped over shattered plasma rifles behind him. Dominion Rex Talon stared into the feed. "You've talked long enough." The image cut to black. Chaos erupted in the chamber. "Prepare the first fleets. Activate border shields. Earth's about to declare war. This is a declaration of psychological aggression." But above all the panic, the Grand Arbiter remained still, then tapped his clawed finger against the surface of the table. Silence. It came instantly. Then he whispered, "They've already declared. We just didn't notice." Back on Earth, what little anyone could see of it anymore, Sol's third planet had gone dark. No satellites. No signals. No diplomatic frequencies. Just atmospheric static and the occasional flash from orbit, like a warning light slowly fading out. No probes had returned since Earth's blackout. What no one realized was that Earth wasn't silent. It was listening. Dominion stood alone in the command core of the Godgrave, a weaponized dreadnought long thought abandoned beneath Mars's crust. His face bore new scars. His right hand was no longer flesh. Silver wires ran into the bones like vines. He studied the holomap before him, where every council ship, station, and comms relay was marked in pulsing blue. "All accounted for," said the voice of his adjutant, Lieutenant Savra, one of the genetically enhanced Terran-born. "Phase 1 synchronization complete. Shall we engage?" He didn't answer at first. He stared at the pulsing map. The Council had mocked Earth's war doctrines for centuries. Too emotional, too reactive, too inefficient. But Dominion had changed the game. He didn't react. He prepared. Not for war. but for correction. "Do it," he said. The order wasn't shouted. It was spoken with the calm authority of a surgeon slicing open a chest. Instantly, hundreds of old Council databanks across the galaxy erupted in cascading failure. Data fragments reassembled themselves. Hidden packets long thought dormant activated. The Council began receiving their own intercepted communications from decades ago, only now edited, twisted, their war crimes and secret votes exposed in perfect detail. News feeds burned. Riots broke out across Council worlds. Lesser species under their rule rose up, screaming that Earth had shown them the truth. Systems fell into chaos, not through bombs or ships, but through information. The war had begun, and Earth hadn't fired a shot. In the Citadel, the Grand Arbiter's scales paled. Why now? Why didn't they retaliate when we first struck them? The human envoy, still standing silent in the chamber, smiled for the first time in years. Because we wanted you to think we were scared. A counselor lunged at him, claws raised, but stopped short when the floor beneath the human glowed. A transport pad. He vanished mid-swing, leaving only a whisper behind. The worst part of silence is not knowing how close the scream is. Back aboard Godgrave, Dominion watched the signal metrics spike. Their fleets? He asked. Mobilizing, Savra replied. But they don't know where to go. Every system near Sol is projecting false gravitational readings. Dominion nodded. Let them scramble. Let them shout. The louder they scream, the harder it is to hear us moving. But, sir, she asked, are we really ready? This will mark us forever. He turned slowly, eyes cold as Martian night. We're already marked. The only difference now is who bleeds first. Across space, the Council finally decoded the last embedded message hidden in Earth's pulse. It was simple. Blunt. Human. You knew what you did. Now see what we've done. And then Earth vanished from every map. Not destroyed. Deleted. But not before Dominion's voice echoed across Council channels one final time. Your mistake wasn't invading us. Your mistake was letting us survive it. The silence that followed wasn't peace. It was a prelude. The first strike was invisible. No plasma. No fleets. No noise. Just systems failing, quietly, across the outer rings of the Council's outermost colonies. Mining platforms reported corrupted navigation data. Surveillance drones began returning footage of planets they were never assigned to. Navigation cores looped old star maps, guiding merchant convoys into dead zones. Then came the blackout on the planet Corin, where a fleet repair base simply ceased transmissions, without distress signals, without sabotage alerts, without a single trace. When the Council finally sent an investigative frigate, they found the entire station intact. Every ship docked. Power functional. Every crew member gone. Not dead. Not abducted. Just gone, like the personnel files that had been scrubbed from every archive in the Citadel. The Council called it a quantum data cascade. Dominion called it the first ripple. He watched the panic unfold with calculated patience, arms crossed as Savra updated him. 13 systems compromised. 4 sent distress beacons before losing comms. But Council response remains incoherent. They're still trying to understand what kind of war this is, he replied. She nodded. And still failing. He smiled faintly. Good. Let them chase shadows while we rearrange the sky. On the Council's central broadcasting network, an emergency address was called. The Grand Arbiter stood beneath the vast mosaic of galactic law, his voice booming across thousands of systems. Earth has initiated an undeclared campaign of disruption across lawful sovereign territories. This act of sabotage will not go unanswered. All core fleets are hereby mobilized. The declaration was expected. The results were not. The core fleets launched from their respective systems with synchronized precision. But as they exited FTL, each found themselves not in orbit over Earth, but in empty void. Stars that shouldn't exist twinkled around them. Planetary alignments were wrong. Light curves inconsistent. Their ships hadn't exited in the Sol system, They hadn't exited anywhere they recognized. Council officers stared at star charts as Dominion's voice bled through their command decks. You never studied chaos, only order. But humans? We grew up lost. Confused. Furious. That's why we fight better in places you don't recognize. Fleet Admiral Russ of the Seriki Alliance shouted over the interference, ordering signal isolation. The comms officer went pale. Sir, the voice isn't broadcasting. It's coded into our language protocols. Every console. Every HUD. Dominion had rewritten the software used to translate human dialects decades ago during Earth's diplomatic submission period. They welcomed the galaxy's data, offered updates and compatibility fixes for mutual trade. Now, every ship running Council Standard Protocol was infected. Not with a virus, but with architecture. Human systems weren't breaking the rules. They were rewriting them. The Arbiter, upon hearing this, ordered a planetary strike on Earth. The command was sent. 3 planetary-level kinetic rods were launched from the fortress moon of Carix Prime. They never arrived. Instead, Earth's orbit filled with what the Council thought were defense satellites. But as the rods approached, each satellite revealed itself: ancient Terran war relics, relic-class dread mines, dormant AI shells powered by nuclear decay and hatred. One by one, they activated. Not to intercept. Not to destroy. They simply opened transmission windows and played back moments of Council atrocities, uncut, raw footage broadcasted straight into the minds of every operator involved in the strike. Pilots screamed. Crew members vomited. One captain shot himself on the bridge. Then the rods turned mid-flight. Not mechanically. They just changed destination. Redirected as if by thought. They struck the Council's own military moon, splitting it like glass, and broadcasting one last Terran message through the shards. Your aim is accurate. Unfortunately, you were always the real target. Dominion observed the destruction from Mars' orbit, hands behind his back. We're in position for the next phase, Savra said. Our counter-splice network is complete. All Council homeworlds are within neural trigger range. He turned to her, eyes steady. Time to make them doubt reality. Every Council capital woke to false weather reports, impossible solar flares, and moon cycles that didn't match. Archives showed ancient species, once extinct, alive again in gene banks. Statues of Council founders melted into human faces under direct sunlight. Psychologists across the quadrant diagnosed a civilizational hallucination event. But Dominion had ensured it wasn't a hallucination. It was memory warfare. He had used Earth's collective trauma to create simulations of belief manipulation. The Council began to forget if they had ever been in charge. Had Earth always been a founding member? Were humans the true architects of the Citadel? To Dominion, it wasn't enough to win. The Council had to lose certainty. But not all were broken. The Velthoran Alliance gathered a fleet of old model ships, ones untainted by Terran code, and moved toward Earth. Dominion let them come. When the fleet entered range of Saturn's moons, a single vessel emerged from the rings. The Crucible, an Earth-built ship not seen since the Battle of Kaltor. Its hull was coated in reflective alloy that displayed the Velthoran ships as if surrounded by themselves. Their admiral opened a channel, snarling. You think you can intimidate us with a ghost? Dominion's reply came from within their own ship, a voice from the walls. No intimidation. I just wanted you to see what it looks like when you fight a reflection. The Crucible released its payload, pure recorded memory from the moon massacre of Arda 7, where the Velthorans killed 10,000 unarmed civilians and buried the evidence. Dominion had stolen their own logs. Now every ship in the fleet heard the screams of the dead, children, elders, unarmed peacekeepers. Half the fleet shut down. A quarter turned on their own. The rest fled. Back in the Citadel, the Arbiter collapsed. What kind of war is this? The human envoy finally returned to the chamber. He wore no weapon, no armor. Just a black Terran coat and a datapad. When they demanded answers, he raised the pad. I'm not here to parley. I'm here to deliver your surrender terms. The council erupted. One cried, "We still have firepower!" The envoy didn't blink. "Dominion doesn't need you to surrender physically. He's already won. This pad doesn't contain demands. It contains your new history." He placed it on the central dais. "Read it. Believe it. Or be forgotten by the ones who will." And with that, Earth went dark again. But this time, it wasn't retreat. It was positioning. Project Cathexis is online. Savra's voice was calm, but Dominion heard the tension behind the words. He didn't turn to look at her. His gaze was locked on the pulsing feed, tens of thousands of Council communication channels lighting up in real time. The moment had come. Not for battle. Not for slaughter. But for revelation. "They won't believe it," she added. "Not at first. They don't need to believe," he said. "They just need to see it. Truth doesn't require permission." Across the galaxy, Council species woke to an infection not of code, but memory. Dreams turned into recollections. Childhood stories became data sets. Entire civilizations began recalling wars that hadn't happened, at least not according to official archives. And yet there they were, documents, images, personal logs. Evidence of Council atrocities hidden, buried, and denied. Only now, undeniable. The Council's first bureau declared a data breach. But analysts found no malware, no source vector. These were not fabrications. They were original, time-stamped records. Council fleets had indeed sterilized 3 unaligned human colonies after the Treaty of Nyar. They had used orbital sunlances to erase evidence, blaming it on rebel factions. The memory of it had been purged from galactic databases. But Earth remembered. And now, so did everyone else. In the Citadel, panic took root. "This is impossible," barked the Velthoran delegate. "These events never occurred. We've never attacked Earth." "The records disagree," replied the Rilican scribe, holding up a hologram of scorched civilians in the Terran outpost of Viral's Reach. "This file was extracted from our own defense archives, dated 41 cycles ago." The Arbiter slammed a fist into the table. "If these humans think they can manipulate history, they're not manipulating it." A voice interrupted. The human envoy had returned. Again. Without invitation. Without guards. He stood calmly at the edge of the chamber, datapad in hand. "They're restoring it." Security moved to intercept him, but the floor under their feet pulsed and locked them in place. Dominion's voice echoed through the Citadel, not from speakers, but through the implants in every dignitary's skull. "You deleted what you did to us. You burned the truth and buried the ash. And yet you dared to keep sitting on your thrones, writing laws with blood still drying on your hands. So we rewrote nothing. We simply undeleted it." The delegates froze. Dominion continued, his voice cold and deliberate. Project Cathexis was never a weapon. It was an archive. Every scream. Every betrayal. Every violation of treaty, morality, and decency. We've compressed them into a living memory stream. And now, we've shared it, galaxy-wide. In homes, in offices, in marketplaces, beings across hundreds of worlds began experiencing phantom memories. Not their own, but Earth's. Images of the Viral fires. The mass burials at Anthema. The public executions of Earth's envoys on Cerity Prime. Real. All of it. On the battleship Vexillum Crown, Admiral Ress watched as his own officers fell to their knees, clutching their heads. "What is this?" One of them gasped. "I see children. I see, oh stars, we were told they were soldiers." Dominion had planned it down to the second. Cathexis did not require belief. It bypassed logic. It spoke directly to the nervous system, using the recipient's own neural patterns to process trauma. It forced them to feel what they had never allowed themselves to imagine. And then came the second strike. All Council governing AIs flickered. Not shut down, conflicted. Dominion had quietly introduced a paradox loop into their truth evaluation matrices. The machines were now presented with conflicting versions of history, the official record, and the cathexis archive. Both verified, both valid. The result? Administrative paralysis. Orders stopped processing. Votes stalled. Courts jammed. The system that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of cycles began to doubt its own authority. Back on Godgrave, Dominion closed his fist slowly. They'll resist, Savra said. They'll try, he corrected. But now their own people know what they did. The Council doesn't fear us. They fear their citizens. And we just handed them every reason to revolt. She hesitated. There's still the rescind option. They'll try to launch it. Dominion's eyes narrowed. Then let's make sure they press the button. In the Citadel, chaos spiraled into fury. The Arbiter activated the Council's ultimate failsafe, a data purge cascade linked to Galactic enforcement drones. If triggered, the system would wipe every archive, memory net, and ship mainframe within 100 light-years, including Earth. It was meant as a final reset button. Dominion's voice returned one final time. I was hoping you'd push it. And then, to the Council's horror, the failsafe triggered itself. Because Dominion hadn't hacked it. He had built it. Back when Earth first joined the Council, Dominion had served as a systems architect for a subcommittee no one paid attention to. Protocol architecture and backup regulation. Boring. Bureaucratic. Perfect. For 30 years, he embedded subroutines, constructed contingency hooks, and encoded a master key into the heart of the fail-safe network. It was never theirs. It was always his. The command spread. But instead of wiping Earth, it wiped them. Council archives emptied. Digital identities were shredded. Planetary legal systems rebooted into blank slates. Their power dissolved not in fire, but in forgetting. Dominion's final transmission blared across every major comm net. You tried to erase us. So we showed you what it feels like. You tried to silence us. So now silence is all you have. As the Citadel's core servers failed, the Arbiter screamed. What are you? The human envoy, still standing calmly, finally spoke. We're memory. We're consequence. We're every page you tore out. And now, Dominion has bound them into your ending. He turned to leave, leaving one sentence behind. You should have killed us when we were quiet. And just like that, Earth vanished from every star chart. Not conquered. Not destroyed. Graduated. The first reports came in as whispers, Council ships drifting off course, officers freezing mid-command, AI cores locking down across entire fleets. Some believed it was a data glitch. Others called it mass psychosis. But no one wanted to say the real word. Dominion. Because saying it meant accepting that Earth had done what no species in the galaxy's long history had ever accomplished, neutralized power without firing a single shot. In the command chamber of the Velthoran War Assembly, High Strategist Kolzar slammed his claws against the interface. Cut the human interference. Purge all neural threads now. We can't, his tech officer snapped. It's not code. It's procedural logic, embedded into our own doctrines. Every security protocol we follow is theirs. It dawned on them then. The humans hadn't just infiltrated the networks. They'd rewritten the galaxy's operating system. Dominion had spent years watching, listening, contributing to subcommittees and drafting interstellar protocol updates. One suggestion at a time. One upgrade at a time. Until everything ran on systems subtly shaped by Earth. And now, Earth had turned it all against them. The Galactic Council tried to rally. They issued a unity directive. It failed to process. Then a planetary mobilization order. It was never received. The systems didn't recognize the authority of their own senders. Dominion had not just stolen their power. He had delegitimized it. In the Terran capital, deep within the Godgrave, Dominion stood at the epicenter of the plan's final phase. He didn't pace. He didn't posture. He merely waited, as he always had, because humans understood something the Council had forgotten. Time is a weapon when used by those with patience. Savra approached. Intercepted signal from the Rilican hegemony. They're calling for a truce. A formal assembly to negotiate. He raised a brow. Are they offering reparations? No. Just a ceasefire and restoration of council protocols. He scoffed. So they still believe this is about rules. What do you want to tell them? Tell them nothing. Let them keep waiting. He walked to the observation deck, watching the artificial sun burn above Earth. Dominion had not designed vengeance. He had designed a condition. One where the council couldn't function, couldn't communicate, couldn't unify, because every structure they trusted had already crumbled under its own forgotten guilt. The council's desperation grew. In secret, a plan was drafted. A direct kinetic strike. Old technology? No AI, no data. Just brute force. A remnant from the Obsidian Wars, a stellar rod, hyper-accelerated through a magnetic sling, aimed at Earth's surface. No systems to intercept, no warnings, no broadcasts. Just destruction. But before they could launch, every screen aboard the weapons platform froze. Dominion appeared, standing beside a chalkboard. Behind him was a schematic of the very rod they intended to fire. Predictable, he said. But let's try something more interesting. He stepped aside. The schematic collapsed into footage, real footage, of the council chamber during the drafting of the Kinetic First Use Treaty. The faces of every councillor who had signed the agreement. Their voices, pledging eternal prohibition of planetary extinction-level strikes. The signatures. The oaths. The sanctimonious broadcasts to the galaxy. Then Dominion smiled. Here's what comes next. He raised one hand. The weapons platform shut down. Its crew received full confession logs sent to their homeworlds. The platform's AI rerouted its internal systems, locking all hatches. Then it played Earth's anthem, the old one. The one from before the unification. And the stars watched as the Council's mightiest weapon turned itself off. In the Citadel, panic became fracture. The Cerati and Velthorin accused each other of sabotage. The Ranvar ambassador was executed by his own security detail. 3 species declared independence from the Council in less than one cycle. The illusion of unity was gone. Dominion's voice returned to the central feed. We are not the enemy you planned for. We are not driven by conquest, or hunger, or expansion. We are the result of a promise broken too many times. You taught us that justice had no place in diplomacy. So we rewrote the terms. A new signal appeared. A live vote, conducted by the galaxy's citizens, not its governments. Billions participated. The resolution was simple. Should Earth be granted sovereign detachment from the Council, complete technological autonomy, and non-engagement protection? The vote passed with 91%. It was the first time in history that a species won not by warfare, but by being right too loudly to ignore. Savra watched the results stream in. They're submitting to the terms. Full detachment. No contact. No ships within 50 light years. They've even proposed a council holiday in remembrance. Dominion said nothing for a while. Then, good. Let them remember us as a myth. She frowned. But we're still here. Exactly. He turned away. The war had never been about destruction. It was about establishing a truth that couldn't be erased. One that forced every species to look at themselves and realize Earth had only done one thing wrong, trusting them. Later, in the shadows of the galaxy's broken center, the remaining council members gathered in a fractured forum. They debated rebuilding. They discussed the possibility of reformatting. But every time someone spoke of war, of reclaiming power, the silence afterward was too deep. Too long. Because in that silence was the ghost of Dominion's last message. You looked at Earth and saw a planet. We looked at you and saw a mirror. And we decided, we didn't like what we saw. No one moved against Earth again. Not because of fear. But because in a galaxy filled with conquerors, only one species had the patience to weaponize truth. And truth, once freed, never kneels.